Hi, everyone. This is Cami from the School of Engineering at USC. Thanks so much for joining us this morning. It's about 9 a.m. Pacific time. And so I'm going to go ahead and get started. And thank you so much for joining us to hear about graduate programs in engineering and computer science. I'll go ahead with just a few housekeeping items first. So if you can, please do me a favor. We're going to have a short presentation today, just about 20 minutes, and just kind of top line a lot of the application criteria, scholarships, and things like that. Then after that, we'll allow for questions. Most of the time, I answer most of your questions during the course of the presentation. So one favor I do ask is that you hold your questions until after the presentation. We're not going to answer them during the course of the presentation. So I will certainly address them as much as possible afterwards. But do kind of hold your questions for now if you can, because most of them will be answered in the course of the slides that I'll cover. Okay, please do use the Q&A window. The chat window is where my colleague Ray Fujioka, who's joining us today, will be adding links, important announcements and things like that. So I try to keep that one a little clear so that it doesn't get kind of too crowded with questions and comments. So we'll go ahead and use that chat window for important links for all of you to reference. Okay, so last thing, if you can just do me a favor, one thing that's really helpful for us too is lots of times many of you may have during Q&A have multi-part questions. And so it's really hard to address people's questions when you're listed as anonymous attendee. So if you can, you can make up a name or you can, but do try to use a name for yourself in the Zoom session. And that helps us a lot so that we can understand kind of the trail of the questions. Okay, so that's it. And so I appreciate your cooperation in those areas. Give me one second. Okay, so again, my name is Cami. My full name is Camelia. I handle graduate admission for the School of Engineering at USC. I've worked here since 2004, and so Ray and I have worked together for that long. And so my role is to help you to see if USC is a good fit for you for graduate studies. So the outreach team and the admission team, the folks that review all the applications, they all work with me as one team. We do have offices also located in India and in China, where many of our applicants actually originate. And of course, I have a full team here based on campus. So we have a great team here. And I'm very fortunate to work with them. So if you have any questions, definitely send them our way even after this webinar, and they'll be happy to answer, as will I. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to help raise somebody. It seems like might have a question or concern if hopefully it's not a technical problem, but if you can see that. Okay, so a little bit about the university. We're located in Los Angeles, as many of you know. We're one of the world's leading private research universities, and in fact, one of the oldest private research universities in the West Coast. We have 22 academic schools and divisions. That's really important because in engineering, you all probably know that engineering cuts across so many disciplines and enables so many other disciplines. And the dean of the Viterbi School is a very big advocate of interdisciplinary education. So just kind of, when you enroll in a master's program here, we don't discourage you from kind of exploring other areas like cinema and business and public policy, communications. So definitely do know that. And that's one of the things I think is a strength of the School of Engineering. Here you can very much imagine our student population is very diverse. The last I checked, we're the second most diverse student populations in the United States after New York University. We have over 450,000 alumni worldwide. Okay, so that's a little bit about USC. And there's a nice snapshot of Los Angeles. For those of you who don't live here or have not visited here, one of the things that I think are very desirable, of course, about USC is that, we've got such a prime location here in Los Angeles. We have a really agreeable climate, almost 300 sunny days out of the year, which today is a little cloudy. But it's a great place to be able to live and work, do internships, really find a lot of cultural and academic opportunities as well. And many of you know that LA is also considered a global center for the arts and technology, international business. We're the 4th largest tech industry in the United States and one of the top startup ecosystems in the world. We hire more engineering graduates than any other city in the United States. Okay, and so a little bit about the School of Engineering. Much of this you probably know, but we're one of the top ranked graduate engineering programs. We have a really strong online program that we've been offering for many years, even pre-COVID. So that was kind of one of the things that I worked on when I first started at USC in engineering back in 2004. And we had a very strong online program even back then. Okay, USC is one of the top universities in the annual ranking of world universities as well. Okay, so I already kind of touched on our global diversity. We really strive to be a national and international leader for producing engineering professionals. Engineering alone receives applicants from over 70 countries. USC has students enrolled from over 110 countries. So we've really got a global population here at USC. Okay, I'm not going to cover all of these things, but the School of Engineering, just to give you a snapshot, is one of the oldest professional schools at the university, and we were founded in 1905. Our student population, there's about 2,900 students pursuing their undergraduate degree, about 6,300 master's and PhD students, 1,000 of which the master's students are taking the program remotely and they're working full-time professionally. We have 8 academic departments, 70 master's programs, and 13 PhD programs. And what I'll do right now is I'll kind of go over those academic departments. Some of these things with the research expenditures and the 38 research centers, that's really important because, of course, that's what's going to feed into all of your curriculum and all of your opportunities, because those research expenditures, as much as a university has strong research budgets, they're really able to kind of provide good opportunities for its students. Okay, so the 8 academic departments are here. At USC, the computer science department is not separate from the School of Engineering, and you'll likely have found that when you look at other universities for your engineering programs. Sometimes the computer science program is separated from engineering, but you'll see here there's 8. And the key here is that how I kind of see this is that, depending on your background, you can either diversify or you can specialize. So if you are a mechanical engineering student, you can, of course, specialize and apply for a master's or a PhD in mechanical engineering. Or you can diversify where perhaps you're interested in aerospace engineering or biomedical or civil and environmental. So there's different paths you can go depending on what your background is. And here in the School of Engineering, we do allow you to apply for 2 graduate programs with 1 application fee. Just with the realization that many students sometimes they're qualified for both, or maybe you're kind of trying to decide between 2. Maybe you want to take a chance at applying for the PhD program and also the same master's program. So many students do that as well. So just be aware of that. And then I'll cover a little bit more of the application criteria right here in a minute. Okay, so for data science, one of the things that I wanted to kind of point out here, because that, of course, is a very large and kind of growing area right now. We do collaborate with some of the other disciplines at USC to be able to provide data science programs, master's programs, I should say, for students, especially those that may not have a background in data science or computing or even engineering. So you'll see here, there are 6 different data science programs. Communication data science is one that is open to social science majors even. We do see a lot of students who have studied communications or public relations or journalism. And so half the courses you would take are in that discipline and the other half would be taken in data science. Okay, so do feel free to ask us any questions later if you have about data science. First, I'll cover the master's programs. Then I'm going to cover our summer research program and then the PhD. Okay, so I'll do that in that order. So first, the master's program here in the School of Engineering is designed to enhance your expertise in a specific discipline. Most of our students apply their education to working in industry. And that being said, if I were to kind of say the numbers, there's probably about 20% of our master's students that go on to a PhD program, either at USC or elsewhere. But most of our students, as I said, do earn the master's degree to get that specialized education so they can apply that to their careers. The master's program generally takes about 1.5 to 2 years. Lots of times students will ask, oh, can I finish it in a year? We don't really advise that because, it is really important that you perform well in the coursework. Lots of times coming from undergrad, people say, oh, I took 4 courses when I was an undergraduate student. But at the master's level or at the PhD level, even it is much different. And so you do want to make sure you perform well because, of course, you don't want to get put on academic probation or not do well in the course and then, so we do kind of recommend generally about 1.5 years. So about 4 semesters, and I'll talk about that in a little bit too. So it is a course-based program, so there is no research requirement in order to earn the master's degree. You need to take the required coursework and earn at least a B or better, which is 3.0. Okay, so that's kind of a little bit about the master's. The application requirements are here. You need to have a bachelor's degree or equivalent in engineering, math, computer science, a hard science, with the exception of those data science programs that I mentioned earlier. There's an online application and a $90 application fee. And if you recall, as I mentioned earlier, you can apply for 2 engineering or computer science programs within that. $90. You'll need to send official transcripts. Please do note that means transcripts that are generated from your university directly. So they are on university letterhead. Lots of times students run into delays when they submit their applications because they go into their university's, their student portal and, they log into their student portal and they print it out themselves and then they upload it. So we see that a lot. And those are not accepted for review for your application. So do make sure you get an official copy from your university, make a PDF of it, or a JPEG or whatever, and then scan it or upload it into your application. Okay, so I can't emphasize that enough because we do see a lot of students make that mistake, and it causes a lot of delays. And sometimes they can't issue an admission decision in time if you don't have that. Okay, so the resume or a CV is also required. That should really cover, all of your academic and professional experiences. A personal statement between 1 and 2 pages at the maximum. There's not a lot of structure with that personal statement. So my recommendation is to kind of use that personal statement as an opportunity to talk about things that your application doesn't say or your application materials don't say. So if you have had other experiences, you want to talk about what your career goals are, or what about the program attracts you to it, anything like that, or any other circumstances that you'd like to inform us about. Do use that personal statement. Okay, letters of recommendation are required or optional for some programs. Most of our programs don't require them. So just be aware when you look at the application criteria. For example, electrical and computer engineering and computer science do not require them. So if you do have some compelling letters of recommendation, then certainly do that, but just know that they're not required. Okay, the GRE is also not required this year for a master's or PhD program, so make a note of that. If you earned your bachelor's degree at an institution where the primary language of instruction was not English, you do need to take the TOEFL or the IELTS. And I should clarify, the TOEFL or the IELTS, the recommended score for TOEFL is 90 with 20 on each section, and IELTS is 6.5, and I think that the section requirement is 6. So do try to strive to earn those scores on the English language, and the reason for that is if you're admitted, which I do see some students get admitted that have slightly under those scores. If you don't have that, the university itself actually will require you to take an English language exam when you come to USC. So I do see a lot of students get admitted, even if they haven't quite met that English language requirement, but USC is really strict. And when you come to USC, they'll make you take that English test. And if you happen to not pass it, they are going to make you take an English language course. So It depends what you like to do. Some people have told me they really got a lot out of taking the English language course. It is additional cost, but it's obviously cheaper for you to study for the English language test, for the TOEFL or the IELTS, and then retake it in your home country. Okay, so if you're an international student, do keep that in mind. Okay, so I'm gonna kind of move on here a little bit. The summer research experience. So this is for actually sophomores or juniors. So second or third year students, you have to be a US citizen or permanent resident or a Canadian citizen. So it is an opportunity that allows you to come to USC, do research with a professor during the summer. And it's a great opportunity, especially to gain research experience if you're going to apply for graduate programs later. So I know I always in these information sessions and during the course of my visits to universities, I always meet students that are in their second or third year and they're preparing to apply for graduate school. Doing a summer research program really helps if you have not had the research experience at your own institution. So definitely look into that. USC obviously offers one, but there are many other institutions that do. And it provides you a stipend, travel, you get a chance to work with a professor and of course the students in their lab. And it is a really good opportunity. So do ask any questions about that if you qualify and if you have any questions. Okay, so the PhD program, so the PhD program is really different because you do need to have prior experience and strong interest in research. That's not to say you have to have published papers, but you do have to understand what research involves and what it requires, the time commitment and such. PhD programs generally take about 5 to 6 years. So it's definitely a commitment. And in that vein, USC aims to fully fund all of our PhD students. So that's kind of some of the primary differences there with the doctoral program versus the master's. You do need to be able to make that commitment to be able to kind of focus on, one area and just kind of that's going to be your specialization for 5 to 6 years. Admission decisions are made by a faculty committee. They're contingent on the match between you and a faculty member. So we don't do rotations as a school when you're admitted as a PhD student. Generally, what you do is when you apply for the PhD program, you're going to indicate in your application which professors you would prefer to work with and why your research background is aligned with that professor's, what you can contribute to that professor's research and their lab. So that's kind of how we do things here in terms of the selection and the review of PhD applicants. Okay, so before I go into the application criteria, here's just a quick snapshot of some of the research strengths of these 8 departments. Of course, all this information can kind of be found on our website too, but this is just to give you just a quick idea. Okay, so for the PhD application requirements, I just touched on that a little bit. It's basically all the same things as the master's. So if you look at items 1 through 4, those are all pretty much the same. The supplemental materials like the personal statement, that's really a big focus. And so you'll want to make sure that in that personal statement, you concisely talk about your research background, experiences that you have, identify those 1 or 2 professors you think you might want to work with, talk about, the alignment between you and those mentioned professors, okay? And they look at that very carefully. The 3 letters of recommendation should primarily be from academic references. If you have one that is perhaps a professor who supervised you, I should say a supervisor who oversaw your work at an internship that was relevant to your discipline, then that's fine too. But they should be academic references, okay, for the most part. You need to demonstrate that you have research ability. And again, that comes in many forms. If you have an abstract of something that you have written, a paper that you have published, then certainly do that. You have any projects that you want to talk about, anything that you want to upload that demonstrates that you do have experience in research. And the reason why I kind of say this is that, just in interacting with many of our professors, they all are very different in terms of what they look for. So there isn't really kind of a standard cookie cutter kind of formula for how to get into the PhD program, because every professor is different in terms of what they look for. There is one professor, and I'll give you this example. She always says, obviously, she looks for strong students, people that did well academically. She doesn't need to have the very, very top students, but what she does look for is she does look for in the letters of recommendation that these recommenders said about their applicants, that this person is persistent, this person worked on a project, they didn't get frustrated when, the project or the experiment failed, 20 times. So she looks for kind of qualitative things because she wants to make sure you're a good match for her lab. She's going to have to work with you for almost 6 years. So it's like any relationship, you do need to kind of make sure that there's a match there. So that's what they're looking for. They obviously need to make sure that you can kind of handle it academically, but they also want to see through all of your other materials that you're going to be a good fit there, a good match. Okay. The GRE isn't required, of course, as I said, for the PhD application as well. The TOEFL requirement is also a requirement. Okay. So, okay, real quick, application deadlines. We accept master's applicants for both the fall and the spring semester. Please make sure you meet those deadlines should you decide to apply here. We don't make any exceptions. So if you do apply after the application deadline, it's considered late. So if it's late, we can't guarantee we're going to give you an admission decision. So don't wait till the 14th. Or even the 15th, because we had experiences last time where people will say, oh, my internet crashed or this and that. And we really can't kind of make exceptions for one. Otherwise, we have to do it for all. So please make sure you meet those deadlines, submit all of your applications by that time. We will consider master's applicants for funding should you be admitted. There is not a supplemental application. You just need to submit all of your required materials by the application deadlines that are here published, and they're published all over our website as well. Okay, excuse me. So tuition and scholarships, or tuition, I should say first, is here. And this is kind of an example. So for a 28-unit program, for example, electrical engineering or computer science, I've tried to here break it down into year 1 and year 2, and you'll see here a fall and a spring semester and a fall and a spring semester. So in terms of approximate total program cost, just for tuition and fees, it's just about $67,000 for a 28-unit program. So there are some programs that are a little higher, and so you'll find all of that also on the website. You'll see kind of a breakdown of each of the programs if you look there, but this is just kind of an example of what you might expect. Okay, there's two, in addition to some other partial scholarship opportunities, there are some really other unique opportunities that have arisen the past year. One of them is the ISI Rising Star internship. So in addition to having a scholarship, you will also have an opportunity to intern at one of our most renowned research centers. So preference is given to students that are applying anything in kind of AI, machine learning, computer science or data science, electrical and computer engineering. But you can kind of see here some of the areas of interest. If you're into cybersecurity, quantum computing, some of those areas do look into this opportunity because this is very valuable. Okay, there's also a USC Meta Center, and as all of you know, Meta is the parent organization of Facebook and WhatsApp and Instagram, but they do have a center here at USC, and they have begun to offer funding opportunities for master's students. You do need to be a US citizen or permanent resident for this one, so be aware of that. But we do have many other opportunities for both international students and US citizens. So do make sure you apply by the scholarship deadline. You'll be notified if you have been identified as a candidate for any of our scholarships. Okay. All right. Anyone interested in, after you graduate, pursuing your career and earning your degree part-time? I mentioned earlier that we do have a really robust online program, and it's the same delivery and same everything as you would if you were to pursue it on campus. So we've got students actually all over the country that are doing the master's program online and working professionally during the day. So if you have any questions about that, I'm happy to answer them. Here's a quick snapshot of where some of our students are working, and this is just a very small snapshot. So if you want to see more of that, you can go ahead and look on our website. I do try to provide as much as possible on the website, because over the years, many of your questions are really similar. And of course, you do want to know where the student outcomes are, what the top 5 hiring companies are, or what the student population looks like. So all of that information is there, and it's uscengineer.com if you want to have a quick URL to get there. Okay, so I've talked a lot about application criteria, lots of things that are requirements, policies, and stuff like that. But if you do want to get a really good idea of what living at USC and in LA is like, do take the opportunity to talk to our student ambassadors. They can really tell you a lot about just courses, the programs, the professors, the student community, where to eat, which is really important, things like that. So if you want to chat with them, they are definitely happy to speak with you, and that you'll find on our website as well. There's the URL, and maybe Ray or one of my colleagues, I think Jessica and perhaps William, are also here. So those members of our group can also help you. Okay, so I promised to try to do those slides in 20 minutes while still providing the information that you need. So I will kind of move over to questions right now. So give me a minute and let me look at the questions. Okay. Okay, so the undergraduate GPA, so Shivani is asking a question about undergraduate GPA. So GPA is a tricky question. So if I have a 4.0 GPA in business and then I apply for a program in computer science, I won't get admitted. But if you have a strong academic performance in all of the required coursework that is required for a computer science program, algorithms and data structures and things like that, then you have a higher chance of admission. So GPA is important, but it's not important in the sense that somebody with a 4.0 is going to get in before somebody with a 3.3. Okay, so what we do is we do a line-by-line evaluation of your transcripts to ensure that you have the proper academic background for the program you're applying for. Okay, so that's the best answer I can give you. I mean, obviously your GPA is something, and that's the benchmark that we use. But then I have seen people across the entire spectrum. We look at the institution that you're attending. We look at the progression, because lots of times students in their first year of college, my daughter's going to be in her first year of college, they don't do as well because you're kind of adjusting to your university life and all that. And then by the time you're a senior, you graduated, you got it, you've got it under control. So that first quarter, your first semester in college, maybe it kind of messed up your GPA, but so all of that is taken into consideration. Okay, so I hope that answers your question, and I hope that answers everybody's question that might be wondering that too. Okay, Shivani is also asking, since the GRE isn't required, on what the basis the profile is evaluated. Okay, information on that profile evaluation process will be helpful. Okay, so I hope I answered that. Okay, so Esha, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, is asking, is prior research experience recommended, or is work experience sufficient? You might want to clarify for me, are you speaking of PhD programs or for master's programs? Okay, and then I can kind of help answer that. Will GRE scores be considered if we submit them? So that's a tricky one. So USC has kind of basically said, we cannot make GRE scores optional here at USC. So they're either required or they're not. If you do feel like your GRE scores, you want the admission staff to look at them, I would not send the scores or take the time to have the scores sent to USC. But what I would do, I would mention what your GRE scores are in your CV or in your resume. That will get looked at, but I would just mention that there, because we're technically not kind of, in order to have a very level playing field, we're kind of not accepting the GRE. But if you want to kind of include it, if you feel like that's going to help you and you want us to look at that, just go ahead and include that in the CV. And of course, I can't guarantee anything because they're going to primarily look at your academic performance at this point. Okay. Okay. Okay, so anonymous attendee is asking, when can we expect results from the university for someone who is applying for the graduate master's in engineering management program for the spring 2023 term? That should be, our application deadline is September. So that should be anywhere from September to November. Okay, so Lisette is asking, can you apply to multiple programs for the PhD? You can apply for 2 PhD programs. Do make sure you don't submit the same personal statement or the same letters of recommendation for both. So those should be very specific to the 2. Okay. All right, Lisette. That's another great question about getting the master's degree along the way. If you do get admitted to a PhD program, by default, the coursework that you take for the PhD program is what is required for the master's. So as you earn your PhD, by the time you earn your PhD, you will have had a master's as well. Now, I don't advise getting admitted to the master's PhD program and then leaving after you earn the master's. So just be aware of that. But yes, the end is an answer to your question. Okay. Okay, so Marzia is saying, I'm a permanent resident interested in the PhD in chemical engineering, and should you take the TOEFL? That one, I think you're going to have to contact us separately because we do need to look at your kind of at your academic, where you earned your bachelor's degree and all of your other your academics. So we'd have to take a look at that. It does have to do with your residency, but it also has to do with where you earned your degrees. Okay. Okay, so Shafat is asking, should I express the intent to work with professors and labs at USC that align with my academic interests in my personal statement for the master's? Well, so for that one, because as I mentioned, the master's programs don't necessarily have a lot of research requirements, although many of our master's students do find research opportunities if that's what they so choose to do. But I probably would not kind of talk use that personal statement that much in depth to talk about professors and labs, because that's kind of not as relevant. But I would kind of, you can definitely touch on that. I think that, you can kind of talk about the, what about those areas interest you, and what you kind of intend to do. Like, for example, if you intend to pursue, try to identify research opportunities as a master's student, you can talk about that. That's not a problem. Okay. Okay. All right, the next question, I know you touched on the need for a hard science at bachelor's. I have a major in accounting, a minor in computer programming. Okay, would the background be enough to apply for computer science, scientists and engineers? Let me think about this one. Yeah, you might be able to apply for the computer science, scientists and engineers program, or applied data science. Let me see here. So if you, so maybe you can contact me or let me know if you've already graduated or if you're already, you're currently enrolled here at USC. But yeah, so in computer programming, if you do look at if you've looked at the requirements for that CS engineering and scientists and engineers program, if you look, it's the exact same master's program as the regular computer science, but they add these 3 undergraduate level computer science courses. So see if you've already taken those. And if you have already taken those, then we'll kind of go from there. That's kind of what I would recommend. And then if Ray or William or Jessica, if you can put my contact information in the chat, it's camelia.lee@usc.edu. Maybe you can contact me and then let me see. And then we can take that offline and I can help you there. Okay. Okay. So Boon Sang Ton is asking, it was mentioned MS programs are course-based. I'd like to clarify, there's no thesis option available for the master's programs. There is a thesis option available, but it is not required. I will give you the honest answer to that. There is a thesis option, and there has been for many years, but most of our master's students don't take it. They do take a course in directed research. There's a lot of students that will take a course, and that is directed research, which means you do a research project and you work with a professor, but very few of our students take that thesis option. But that is available should you decide to pursue it. And it's not a separate program. You still apply for the same master's program. It's just something that you would talk to the advisor about once you enroll in the program. Okay. Okay. What is the, okay, so Nimit is asking what's the best website to calculate GPA? So that's a very good question. When you submit your online application for admission, you should report your GPA in the scale that's used at your institution. So if you reside in Nigeria or in India or in Singapore, whatever that is, list it as such. So I never recommend anybody to try to calculate their GPA to put into the online application, because to be honest, when you submit your application, what happens is immediately it goes to the university's graduate admissions office. So I don't see it at that time. The graduate admissions office has a team of very seasoned, experienced people that will calculate and convert your GPA to the 4-point scale that we use. So in answer to your question, don't spend time doing that. You can obviously do that for your own reference, but you don't have to do that for our application, okay? How long after the deadline can I expect a decision? Our decisions for the fall are done between January and April. If you apply for the spring, it should be done by November. Okay, Curtis, what's the best way to contact faculty to express interest in their research? That's a very good question. That's a very common one. So as you know, professors aren't always super responsive. Based on my interactions with them, lots of times many professors tell me, you know what, I've got, my research, I've got my current students to kind of take care of. So oftentimes I don't have the time to respond to every single inquiry. So the best thing that I can recommend is to do this. So if you decide to contact faculty members, know that, like anything these days, you've got probably 30 seconds of their attention. So I would attach a copy of your CV. I would make sure that you have already looked at their research webpage, which most active research professors should. They have a lab or a research group webpage. So make sure you do that first. And then in the first 2 lines, you need to really concisely be able to let them know what's happening. So I would say, hi, Professor so-and-so, my name is Cami. I'm a mechanical engineering student at USC. I'm interested in your research in this, and I'm wondering if you are taking PhD students for fall of 2023. And then here's a little bit about me and 3 more lines. I've attached my CV. I would like to meet with you if possible by phone, which that's sometimes hard. So ask them very specific questions. Make sure you don't kind of batch email a bunch of them, but that's kind of my suggestion, because they want to look at what you need very quickly. Okay, all right. So let me do this for 1 minute. I'm going to kind of look at some of these other questions. Okay, so I'm going to take just 30 seconds if you just give me a minute, and then maybe Jessica and William, if there's any here that can be responded to in the text, that would be great. And let me just kind of review some of these and just give me about 30 seconds of a break. Okay, thanks. All right. Okay. All right. So I'll answer a few more of these questions. I can't promise you all that I'm going to get to every one of these, okay? But I'm going to try to answer the ones that I feel like will apply to, other attendees here. Does contacting faculty members before the application have any positive or negative effect on the chance of being admitted? No. Okay, so this individual, I apologize. I don't want to mispronounce your name, but with the last name Bashal. I have an 8.72 cumulative GPA out of 10. I have a research paper. I think you're asking me if this is sufficient for applying. And so those are the kind of things that are very difficult for me to respond to, because we have 70 master's programs, we have master's and PhD programs. Without looking at your academic performance, I really cannot make any assessments about your admissibility. So I would say, you know, try your best to kind of understand what the application requirements are, as I've kind of discussed them. Look on the webpage, contact a professor if you need to for the PhD programs, but that's kind of the best response I can give you. So, you know, I should manage expectations. It's really difficult for me to kind of tell you, you know, if I come up to you and I say, hey, I have a 4.0 GPA and I wrote this paper, can I get admitted to the computer science program? It's not possible because, you know, obviously I don't have your transcripts in front of me. Okay. So please kind of, I hope that is, you can understand that. Okay, so I think I answered the question about when admission decisions are rolled out. So if anybody still has a question about that, perhaps one of my colleagues can put that in there. Okay, what is the difference between the master's in computer science with the data science specialization and the master's in applied data science? So that's a good question. So the master's in computer science, this is going to sound silly, but the master's in computer science, that is a master's in computer science with a specialization in data science. The master's in applied data science is designed for just focusing on data science, but then it is open also to students that perhaps applied or had a background in mathematics, economics. So that program is actually broader and has students with a broader range of backgrounds. A lot of students pursue the master's in computer science because that obviously that has a lot more to do with computing. So that's kind of your choice and based on what your academic background is. Okay. All right. Okay, so, okay. Akhil is asking, I have a bachelor's degree in electronics and telecommunication from Mumbai. What should I do to increase my chances to get admitted to the computer science program? Let's see. Okay, so definitely look at, and maybe one of my colleagues can put the Masters of Computer Science program webpage there. You do want to look at that very carefully because I do want people who apply to computer science to really understand how competitive it is and make sure you do have the academic background for it. If you don't have the background for the master's in computer science, the program I was talking about just now, the master's in computer science, scientists and engineers, is the same master in computer science, but with 3 additional undergraduate level computer science courses. So I would compare those two and see which one is a better fit for you. If you didn't take a lot of computer science courses and you're an electronics and telecommunications major, I would probably apply for that extended scientists and engineers program. Okay, so do look into that. Okay. Nimit is asking, you already sent GRE scores, even though they aren't required. Does that backfire? No, they're not going to look at that. So if you sent your scores there, they're not going to look at them. Okay. Okay, so there's a few questions about application fee waivers. So I would kind of like to address that one. So application fee waivers, we have very limited opportunity to offer application fee waivers. Okay, so for those of you, we cannot issue them based on any kind of financial hardship. So please kind of be aware of that. The university kind of does not permit us to kind of offer a lot of fee waivers. So for those of you that have circumstances where you do want to be considered, I actually cannot promise anything. But if you do want to, if you want to send a copy of your CV and a copy of your transcript, Ray or William can kind of tell you how to do that, or the email address to send it to. We can take a look, and I have to tell you, our ability to do that is pretty limited. But if you do want to kind of take a chance at kind of being considered for that, we can try. But it does take a couple of weeks to have that reviewed and processed. Okay, so I see a few of you have asked about that. Okay, so here's a question about letters of recommendation. Since letters of recommendation are optional for the master's in computer science, how much advantage would it have over someone who has not submitted them? So that is a really good question. So, and it's a broad question. So you should submit letters of recommendation only if they are truly going to help your application. And those letters of recommendation should be qualitative. They should be from professors or professional references that know you very well and know your academic background very well. So it's a hard question to ask, because if somebody submits 3 letters of recommendation and each one of them is somebody that said, yeah, that person was in my class, that's not really going to help too much. Okay, so it doesn't have necessarily an advantage or a disadvantage, and that's the reason why computer science doesn't require them. So if you don't feel like you have a contact or recommender that can provide a substantial letter that kind of really enhances your application, I really wouldn't go through the effort in doing that. Okay, so I hope that answers your question. Okay. Okay, what amount of scholarship is provided? What's the criteria? So we have a number of different scholarships with varying criteria. So the best thing I can tell you is submit your application for admission. The scholarships, though, are all partial. Okay, so just be aware of that. We have a lot of students sometimes that seem surprised later, but we have actually no full scholarships for the master's programs. The PhD programs, on the other hand, are funded, but for the master's programs, we have no full scholarships. So be prepared that the amount is at maximum 40% of your tuition. Okay, so that's the maximum amount of scholarships that one might expect. Okay, all right. I think maybe I answered many of your questions already. Okay, so overall, I know a lot of you have questions about just application review, how we're going to look at your application. So the important thing here is that your academic background is going to be the first and foremost, because what the admission staff is going to do, if you put yourself into my situation, because I've not had the pleasure of meeting of all of you in person to know how wonderful you all are. So all I'm going to have is the documents that you submit. And the thing that the admission staff is doing is they're making sure that if they admit you into that whatever program you're applying to, you're going to be able to successfully complete that coursework. That's for the master's program. So the PhD program is very different. They're going to look at all kinds of things to make sure that you're a good fit for their lab. You have the soft skills and the hard skills to be there. They know what they're looking for in terms of the professors. But for the master's, it's really straightforward. So they look at everything you submit. They look at your CV. They look at your personal statement. They look at everything you submit is a component. So they're going to look at that overall and holistically to ensure that they have the confidence that if they admit you into the program, you're going to be successful. So a lot of you are asking me all of these different questions, like, what are you going to look for in my transcript? And what are you going to look for in my CV? But everything is looked at all together. Of course, if you were not a strong student, and I'm always very honest, if you were not a strong student, it's going to be very difficult. Okay, so if and each one of us knows if we were a strong student or not. If you are you want to apply for a master's in computer science and you did not do well in all of your data classes or your math classes, I always am honest with applicants, and I say I would not suggest applying for that. I would try to pursue something different. Okay, so I hope that kind of helps a little bit. I have just a couple more minutes to answer any last minute questions. And of course, I am very happy to answer questions offline. You can contact me separately as well. But let me try to take a couple more questions here, okay? Yeah, so you know, here's somebody who's asking the question, how does the university evaluate transcripts? Okay, um, so that's kind of a component of the evaluation process. And that's why we have a team of evaluators that look at that. Okay, so first it goes to the university and they calculate your GPA, and then it goes to the engineering staff for their review. Okay, so you know, every institution, I guess kind of my response to that is you're going to have to kind of trust the process that they have, you know, many years of experience and kind of understanding performance and eligibility and who is going to be successful, you know, with everything that is submitted in applications, who can potentially be successful in these programs. Okay. All right. I hope I have answered most of your questions. I'm kind of looking here. Yeah, I think I've answered most of them, but if I didn't get to your question, please do feel free to contact me separately. Okay. All right. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to wrap up here. I think I answered most of these questions live, and I hope that was helpful for all of you. So what I'll do is I'll kind of wrap up here. I'm going to look in the chat, just make sure. Thank you, Jessica, for adding my contact information in the chat. So for those of you that have questions offline, I'm happy to hear it. I know there was a USC student here that wanted to ask about the computer science, the scientists and engineers program. So I'll go ahead and yeah, I'll kind of address that with you if you want some help there. But anyway, thank you very much for joining us today. I really appreciate all of your interest in our programs. I hope I do see you apply for an engineering or computer science program. And as I mentioned, if you do have further questions later along the way, do contact me, and do know that our deadline is December the 15th for the fall and September for the spring semester, which is actually in January. So again, I hope you have a great day or night wherever you are right now. And I look forward to speaking with you further. Okay, have a good one. Thank you.